my dudes, welcome back to my second channel. So, last month I posted a summer Q&A part 1, and guess who never posted part 2? Me. I did actually film it, and I intended to post it, and I got busy, and I just went to go and finally finish editing it, and I lost the footage. So I guess I'm refilming it now. Luckily, I still had the questions screenshotted on my phone, so I've copied them onto my computer, and we're gonna chat about mainly what it's like being a YouTuber, and then a couple questions about politics, but not too much, because I'm already exhausted. By the way, I kind of look like I'm in a sweat lodge right now, because I'm sweaty. I was not prepared to be on camera today, but we're here for the content. As you may notice, I am in a cabin. I've been lucky enough to be spending some time upstate this summer, which has been very nice to be out of the city for a while, but I will be getting back to my apartment in Queens soon enough, and we will be back sitting in front of my bed on the floor where I belong. Anyway, feel free to just listen to this like a podcast and not look at me. Bye! Okay, the first question, which is not related to anything, someone asked, what does your TikTok algorithm look like? And I want to talk about this because though some people call me an internet scholar, which is very generous, and my main series is called Internet Analysis, I have not gotten into TikTok. I resisted TikTok all through the beginning of quarantine when it became a worldwide obsession. And I've seen TikToks on Twitter. I follow some other tech writers and commentary channels that talk about TikTok trends, so I vaguely know kind of what's going on TikTok, but I'm very much out of the loop. Like, if you reference a TikTok song or like specific TikTok jokes, I just don't know what's going on. And that is rare for me, and I felt uncomfortable. The internet is my domain. How could I possibly ignore the current leading manufacturer of pop culture content? So, I've actually re-downloaded the TikTok app like multiple times, but I was hesitant to download it because of its data issues. I was taking a class on digital privacy this summer, and the whole time I was like, we have surveillance everywhere. Every single app and device that we have around us and in our homes are constantly monitoring us. But why am I so concerned about TikTok? I will say I think that TikTok's privacy terms are like way bigger of an issue than most apps, but I don't know, so not confirmed. Anyway, I also think it's an element of my individualism where I'm like, I'm gonna resist what's popular because I don't wanna do what's popular. Stupid. So with some peer pressure, I finally downloaded TikTok and tried to start going through the process of watching them to build my feed. This is the worst part, and I can't seem to get past it. I've heard a lot about the different, parts of TikTok, of course, straight TikTok, gay TikTok, lesbian TikTok, goat TikTok, potato TikTok, there's so much, and I want to know where I belong. But getting through the first mainstream TikToks that they show you when you're a fresh account is so painful. It reminds me of Facebook. It's like the most common denominator things that are supposed to be appealing, like couples pranks and lip syncing families, and I don't want this. How do I skip straight to my parts of TikTok? What are they gonna be? So all of this is to say I don't know what's on my algorithm, and I have not been using TikTok because it's not good for me yet. It kind of reminds me of when Twitter and Tumblr were new and people didn't understand them. So they'd be like, I don't know how to use this. How do you even get started? Who do you follow? So I know it's going to take me time, but if you know how I can work on my algorithm, let me know. Should I follow people? Should I like posts? I'm also thinking of it as a social experiment because I don't want to subconsciously or consciously taint my algorithm. I want it to be natural, I want it to be me, and then I will judge it, but I don't know. So anyway, that's a really big question that I wanted to start off with. Anyway, now about me being a YouTuber. Someone asked how old I was when I started YouTube. I just noticed that these are in the background and I don't like them. Well, maybe put them more in the background. It's just like a little techie moment there. I always have cords and a camera lens cover on my bed. Don't you? I'm a YouTuber. I started my first YouTube account in 2007, Tiffany the Prez. all of my videos are now privated on that account for everyone's well-being. But I have pretty much been posting videos ever since then. Obviously through middle school it was spotty because there wasn't a lot of technology, and if like my little digital camera broke, I didn't have a phone that could record video like you lucky children today. But yeah, I guess that means I've been on YouTube for 13 years. Yikes. Next question. Do you avoid using the word YouTuber when somebody asks what you do? And I'd say sometimes, like if I'm in an Uber, pre-COVID, in a situation where strangers sometimes ask what you do. No, I don't want to be like, hi, I'm a YouTuber. Do you know what youtube.com is? Do you know what commentary channels are? I talk about internet culture. Like, no, I'm not going to get into that. And also, I don't want to I never want to introduce myself to someone as a YouTuber because there are so many negative assumptions and stereotypes about YouTube. But if I'm doing an interview or something and people are asking what I should call myself, I prefer content creator. But in a sense where people already know I'm a YouTuber, like they're talking about YouTube and they call me a YouTuber, that's fine because it's in the context of YouTube. Does that make sense? Biggest regret from your YouTube channel. I actually have probably a list going somewhere because I wanted to make this video for this channel. Maybe I'll do it someday. Because I do have a certain number of, I guess, regrets or things that I maybe would have done differently throughout my 13 years on YouTube, I guess to maximize success or whatever. But generally I always go back to I'm glad that my journey led me here because it makes me who I am today. I will say though, I do regret the periods of my YouTube career, hobby, where I just got really bitter about my success or my channel growth being very slow because after 8 years on YouTube, I wanted to hit certain milestones and I was frustrated. But it's looking back on that era, I wasn't making great videos. I was making okay videos, but I wasn't doing anything that would have warranted substantial growth or it was nothing new or fresh. So I can see how it wasn't particularly attractive to anyone who came across it. That's why internet analysis has been such a good thing for my channel, is because first of all, I was really passionate about it and I still am. So I finally found a direction to go in and a genre and something that I actually cared about. And then my audience could subscribe and know kind of what to expect in future videos instead of all over the place kind of videos that I was posting before that. So I guess no regrets, but also hindsight is 20/20 and you can always think of how you may have done things differently, but I don't have a time machine, so what does it matter? Next question, who inspires you / how do you get inspired for videos? I guess I'll start with how do I get inspired for videos. I have an endlessly long list of topic ideas on my phone in the Notes app, and that's where I keep all of my potential leads, or when people suggest topics that I might be interested in, I'll add them to the list. And sometimes I'm very excited about a topic and I'll write out a whole paragraph of notes, and sometimes it's literally just the title or a very broad idea. But I keep them in my Notes app for months, even years, and sometimes I just slowly think about it in the back of my mind, and then if I remember something new, I'll add it to the notes list, or if I'm listening to a podcast or reading an article and find something relevant, I'll throw it in there. And still, I just leave it there. It's brewing. It's simmering so low for months, and then finally I'll be oh yeah, it's time to cover that one, I guess. So the actual topics come from a million different places. Sometimes it's just me noticing things online, sometimes it's based on suggestions. And now who inspires me? Wow. I get inspired by a lot of the channels that I watch, mostly commentary because it's most relevant to my work. So ContraPoints has obviously been very influential to me. PhilosophyTube, the two of them just create art, and I feel their talent is so far out of my range. Academically, set design, the aesthetics, the characters, I might be able to write a decent video, but I don't think the scope of my videos does not compare at the moment. By the way, if you guys enjoy those types of videos, you should check out Jordan Teresa. She's been making videos that are similar to that, video essays. She's using the mood lighting, left tube. I've been following her channel for probably about a year now because she said she had been inspired by internet analysis in part, and I was very flattered, but also I loved her videos. And she's really, really, I feel like, fallen into her groove in terms of topics lately. So check it out. She's been talking about the working class. She's been talking about daddy issues and mommy issues. Just fascinating stuff. Other commentary channels that inspire me, D'Angelo Wallace. He has been absolutely killing it, and it's been unreal to see his success. And every video he makes, I'm just blown away by the research and the writing and his skill in organizing and explaining so much information so well. Yeah, there are so many more, but generally the commentary channels, especially that I watch, are just so genius that yes, I get inspired, but also a little bit like that classic feeling of being like, haha, how could I ever be as good as you? I don't know, bye. Next, someone asked, what is your creative process like? So I've been thinking of making a whole video for this channel. Again, it's been on my list for a long time. I want to do like the process of making an internet analysis video because a lot of people ask me how I do the research or how I write it or how I organize. And every video is different for sure, but I do generally have a pattern of my method, I guess, for a basic video. So maybe the next time I'm writing one, I'll walk you guys through the process. But generally, like I said, I tend to keep topics in the back of my mind for a while. And then once I pick a topic to actually make a video on, I still have to give myself a few days to just like think about it, you know? Like I'll just like watch related videos or like read different articles. And I can't just be like, hey, today I have to write this video. Like I have to give myself a lot of time to really flesh it out with less pressure, so that things come naturally to me and I have more time to like feel it out, if that makes sense. Hence why it takes so long to make a whole video, because I have just a lot of time of like thinking. I'll be thinking for a few days, I'll be writing like a rough outline or just like random bullet points and things to look into, tangents, questions, and then when I go into researching and like fact checking myself, that leads me in other directions. And then finally I have to like reorganize it so that it makes sense, kind of like writing or structuring an essay. And then of course the filming and editing and all of that jazz. So if you guys want that video, let me know. How could a new YouTuber collab with you? Good question. I, first of all, love sharing other YouTubers, especially small channels, as often as I can. So if you've seen on my Instagram, I usually share on my story. If any of my viewers like send me a video of theirs or I just discover something and I like it and want to share it, I will do that because I love giving smaller channels a bit of a boost, because I remember what it's like to be a small channel and just like want some type of a break, like wish that somebody would share your stuff so that new people can see it. And so I love being able to do that for anyone whenever possible. Also, with my last series that I just did on the KB body types, I collaborated with 4 smaller channels, and that's been really great. I've been so excited for them to watch their subscriber counts grow and to give them the chance to like not just get like a shout out, but like to be able to be an integral part of a video with me so that people hear them and then want to check out their channel because they've already like gotten to know them a bit. I feel like that's a very successful method. I just explained why YouTube collabs are successful. But generally, if you message me your content, I usually try to check it out. So that's a way. Send me a DM on Instagram maybe. Next question, do you get a lot of hate comments or DMs? I would say no. I don't get a lot of hate in general. I mean, maybe I get hate comments, but I tend to not check my comments on videos after they've been up for a few days. So it's not like I keep up with all the comments. In my experience, I've found that the comments tend to be the most nice the earlier on in a video. So like right after it's posted, obviously it's like people who are subscribed, people who have notifications on, who are probably fans of mine and like me. Though there are those people who I think subscribe so that they can dislike a video immediately, because like when a video was posted 5 minutes ago and it has a dislike or two, I'm like, why are you rushing over here to hit the dislike? But okay, all right, maybe it was a slip of the hand. Anyway, I think, you know, hate comments maybe, but I don't see them and I don't take them too personally if they're like actual hate rather than like criticism or like actual questions in good faith. Like if someone's just calling me ugly or stupid or whatever else, I don't take those seriously. And then DMs, I almost never get like a hateful DM. Like sometimes I'll get a question or like someone a little bit mad about how I said something, but I wouldn't call that a hate DM. Do you get stressed about saying the wrong thing in your more serious videos? Yes, I do. I take it very seriously, and my writing process is a very slow process, and I really do try to be as specific as possible, as nuanced as possible, whenever possible. But of course, I want to get things right, like I want to portray things fairly, but also if I'm mentioning my opinion or something subjective, I know that people are going to disagree because of course not everyone has the same opinion, and I do get a little bit scared of the comments that may disagree with me, but that's just something I'm trying to learn how to deal with, because any YouTube channel, any size, you're gonna have people who are gonna disagree with you. Even if you say the most bland things, there's going to be somebody who disagrees. So there's really no way to avoid that. But yes, it does stress me out, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. Like if I was like flat out wrong about like a fact or something, or I'm portraying something wrong, I do get stressed about that, because like you can't edit a YouTube video. Like I can't post a video and then edit it and like pop in and be like, oh, by the way, oops, I said this wrong. So that's why during the editing process, I try to clarify whenever possible, but even still, sometimes there are definitely times where I'm wrong or didn't explain something the most clear way, and I just have to live with that, even though it's permanent and it's on YouTube forever. What's most important to me, I think, is like not being malicious, and I do want to be the most sensitive when I'm talking about things that I don't have a personal experience with. For example, LGBTQ plus issues or issues relating to people of color. Like, I want to bring up those issues, but I want to make sure that it's accurate and that I'm being sensitive and fair, and it can be tricky because I haven't experienced those things, so I can't fact check myself, so I have to like look online to make sure what I'm saying is decent. Sorry, there's some kind of revving going on outside if you can hear that. Next question, what are the topics or themes you want to explore in your channel but are not confident enough to try yet? There are definitely a lot of topics. Again, there are a lot of issues that I'm interested in and want to use my platform to put a spotlight on, again, relating to identities or people that have had different experiences than me, particularly marginalized communities or what have you. But I also don't want to necessarily make it my brand, like, oh, I'm the white savior straight cis girl who's coming through to like share my platform and give you a voice. Like, it is important to use your platform to talk about those issues, but I don't want to like make my brand like profiting off these issues that aren't even my own experiences, if that makes sense.
Like if I, for example, suddenly wanted to dedicate my entire channel to discussing racism, should that be my brand?
Anyway, for this question, there are a lot of political issues specifically that I would love to discuss in videos, but I don't feel that I am knowledgeable enough on to be able to cover them and do them justice. So like, I consider myself part of LeftTube because I'm a leftist on YouTube, but like not all of my videos are like blatantly leftist as much as like certain channels. So I feel like people expect left-tubers to always be talking about like Marx and like class and capitalism, and those are all things I'm very interested in, but I don't want to talk about it unless I know that what I'm talking about is accurate. Or there are just such big issues that I need to like literally study. Like I need to read some books before I could even think about covering these issues, because it's really important to get them right and not misrepresent them. And that brings us to the next question. Do you ever have identity crises regarding your content? And yes, I think I do. So relating to the last question, something that I've found interesting is like, I consider myself to be a leftist, and I know that some of my audience are also leftists, but I also have people who are maybe moderates. I know I have some conservatives who watch me. I have people who are just apolitical and not really involved or not very educated about politics, maybe not interested at this point. So I try to use my videos as like an entry point to a lot of these discussions, because like I know that my videos are not academic. They're not very dense. A lot of, again, LeftTube videos tend to be very, both of those things, academic and dense, and can be a little bit difficult to understand if you're not already knowledgeable. Like there are certain channels I watch where I'm just like, whoa, slow down please. Who? What theory? I haven't studied this. I didn't go to grad school. I don't have a PhD. So part of what I do is like I want my videos to be accessible, and I want to explain these topics, or at least introduce them in a way that people who maybe know like very little or nothing about it can go, okay, cool, I'll look into this deeper. Like, I'm not trying to make like, even though I call some of my videos deep dives, that's just for SEO, you know? I'm not trying to make like all comprehensive videos about these very big subjects, but I would like to introduce my audience, and if that does encourage some people to go learn more about it or research more about it, I am happy. But sometimes I worry that I'm not being left enough, you know? Is my opinion too like middle of the road? And that's also like, some of it's my personality, and I joke about being a Libra, but like really in my actual life, I do try to consider like all sides, and I tend to usually understand, you know, both perspectives or whatever of an issue. Like, I can see your point, but also this. And I think to some people that comes off as very like me avoiding taking a stand, when really I'm just like, I'm trying to have a nuanced conversation and be like, yes, I agree with this, but also this. And when I'm making a video, like internet analysis videos, it's not necessarily representing just my opinion. I try to make them definitely not objective. I'm not objective in my videos, but I do try to at least present a somewhat fair representation. And this gets into like journalism, which I'm definitely not a journalist, but I took a class about news literacy. The ideas of like fairness and objectivity and like being biased and balance in reporting or whatever. It's pretty much impossible. You know, like those are all concepts that are important to consider in journalism or reporting or whatever, but like not every topic needs or should be presented in like a fair, objective, balanced way, because sometimes there is like a very clear, morally right answer, and it wouldn't be right to represent both sides as equal. Like, for example, my professor mentioned climate change. Like, would you write an article about climate change and take climate scientists' words and climate deniers' words like at the same level? Like, be like, well, they say this, but they say that. It's like, no, they're more credible, they've studied this, and these people are ignoring science. Total tangent. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Anyway, I think some people might be annoyed in the way that I present information because I'm like, this, but then what about that? And I think they maybe would want more of like a, this is my perspective and I'm right. But that's just not the type of content that I'm currently interested in making, or at least that doesn't fit my vision for internet analysis videos. Sometimes I have very strong opinions about certain things and I try to make those clear, but sometimes I'm still figuring out exactly where I stand on an issue, and sometimes it's complicated and it's nuanced and it's not as simple as just being like, yep, this is right, boom. Like, I think most issues are a lot more complex than that. So I just try to represent a little bit of that in my videos. Anyway, though, as a leftist, I guess, I think sometimes I do have a bit of an identity crisis about, am I presenting myself as left enough? Am I perhaps betraying some of my leftist values in being a little too balanced or fair in this argument? And that's something I'm still working through. I'm trying to stick to my personal beliefs, and that's something that's actually very hard. Having a YouTube channel, especially one of my main channels, like growing size, the more people that watch me, the more tempting it is to, I guess, like water down my opinions and make them more palatable to the general public, because I don't want to ruffle feathers. I am not a person who enjoys confrontation, even online. Even though I'm the one in this power dynamic with the power because I have the platform, I still get scared of people like confronting me in the comments. I'm a very sensitive gal. So it's tempting to, I guess, almost subconsciously start to say what I think people might want to hear, or try to anticipate what the hate or critical comments could be and try to like prevent that from happening. But I don't want to water down my own opinions. I don't want to make my videos less me. And so that's something I'm trying to work with, is like, I'm really trying to remember what my own values and beliefs are. And it can be hard on the internet because you're constantly getting bombarded with other information, and like you can get radicalized one way or the other. And I think it's important to always check yourself and be like, hey, do I believe this? Could I explain why I have this perspective? Or is it just because I've heard people say like, this is this? And I found like if someone asks me something and I can't explain the issue myself and why I believe that, I'm like, I need to do more research because I need to know why I believe this. And sometimes I can tell that something is right, like it's morally right, but I don't yet understand why or how. And even then I'm like, okay, well, I have more research to do. I need to figure out all of this for myself and confirm that this is indeed right or whatever. This is a big video, you know? And the last question about being a YouTuber, what is the hardest thing about being in the public eye? And I'll be quick with this one, but I'll say for me personally, as I've mentioned, the criticism is the most difficult for me. Again, I'm very sensitive emotionally. I'm scared of confrontation. I guess sometimes I am a bit of a people pleaser, so sometimes I get overwhelmed by like reading too many comments and just feeling like I've done something bad, even though a lot of the time I'm just voicing my opinion and that should be okay, even if a number of people disagree with me. Oh no, I'm sweaty and you can see it! Oh, how embarrassing. I'm officially hiding my armpits now. I told you this was a sweat lodge and I was not lying. Anyway, aside from me, I would say the hardest thing is making boundaries. So again, as my channel has grown, I've realized how important it is for me to have boundaries for myself and also the people in my life, be it my partner or my family or my friends. Like I used to post so much about everyone in my life, and now I've become a lot more private in those ways on behalf of those people because I don't want to subject them to any kind of public attention. But of course, being a figure online, I think there is kind of this expectation that you're supposed to share everything. You're supposed to talk about your relationship. You're supposed to show your significant other. You're supposed to be willing to engage in conversations about that. But like, I am really trying to draw the line and be like, okay, I'm the figure, but that doesn't mean that everyone who knows me or is associated with me has to be involved with that also. So thank you in advance for respecting my privacy and the privacy of my loved ones. Finally, a couple of political questions, really just a few. Someone asked, were you involved in social justice when you were younger? And I'll say no. Like, I definitely was not one of these like child activists, though I'm very proud of them. There were definitely a couple issues, like by the time I was 12, 13, that I was passionate about. I remember like Prop 8 in California, being young and like hating the people who were picketing about it. But no, I would say I definitely wasn't active in any social justice movements in a significant way, like, but I did passively support them, I guess. Then someone asked, what's your political journey been? Basically, in short, I owe a lot of my leftist beliefs to Bernie Sanders. I found Bernie in 2015, and prior to that, my dudes, I had an Instagram post from like early 2015 where I posted a picture and then I said something about like, can't wait to vote for Hillary. And like, I was one of those people who like saw the pictures of like young Hillary and I was like, oh my God, cool. Looking back, I'm like, what the hell? Like, why did I think Hillary was cool? I could not name one thing in her history or her record that I was in favor of. I was just like, oh, cool, woman in politics, gonna be the Democratic nominee, I assume. And like, I was one of those passive people who was just like, hell yeah, team HRC, with no knowledge. But anyway, I took a political quiz called I Side With, and I was just like, yeah, let's see what's going on. And then my top result, my match, was Bernie Sanders. And at that point, I didn't know who he was, but then I looked deeper into him and his record, found out about his campaign, and I was like, dude, this guy is way better than Hillary. Because at that point, I was reading about the differences between their records and their platforms, and I was like, there's no fucking question here. Like, this guy's my dude. And after that, I got very, very involved in politics, learning more about the political system, learning about primaries, issues like Medicare for All, a living wage, all of these things that I probably was in favor of. I just didn't like, I wasn't a political person really before that. Or maybe I was a passive Democrat, but like, what does that mean? So yeah, that's when I became a leftist and really started to talk about these issues, and I started to have more of a class consciousness and more of an idea about intersectionality, and that was the beginning of my journey. And still through this year, Bernie's been the man, but I'm excited that there are going to be more figures for us to look up to. And, you know, as people say, it's not about standing politicians. We shouldn't stand them. They owe us. They are public figures that are supposed to work for us. But I will say that, like, I have been personally moved by the power of someone who can bring a movement together. And it's like, as much as I admire Bernie, the politician and the person, as far as I could know him, I'm also so deeply inspired by the movement that grew out of his campaigns. and the people that I've met and the volunteers, and that's the most inspiring thing so far. So I hope that leftist people can continue to pursue power and change, and we'll see. Someone asked, would you ever want to run for office? And this is a big question. Fun fact, my first YouTube channel was called Tiffany the Prez because I was president of my elementary school in 5th grade. And then in middle school, I was president in 8th grade. Tiffany the Prez times 2. And yes, did I try to run in high school and either gave up or lost? Yes. So yeah, I've been interested in politics in terms of like power. I like having an office since I was young. I liked the idea of being in control and being able to make some decisions. Like, what decisions did I make in 5th grade? None. Did I do anything substantial as 8th grade president? I don't know. Probably not. Made some good video announcements, but like... Okay. But in recent years, as I've actually gotten more inspired about politics and activism, I have very much seriously considered that. You know, I wish I was the type of person who could work on political campaigns and have this endless energy and devotion to the movement, but like I literally physically don't have that. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm a very low energy person and I just would not be able to handle that for one day. And I think that running for office is a very noble thing, obviously if you're running for the right reasons, because you want to improve people's lives. Not that you want power or fame or whatever. And when I look at politicians, I'm like, I wish I could be the one to be like, I'm gonna stand up and run for whatever. But also, I don't know if I actually would make that great of a politician. Again, I'm too much of an introvert. I'm too low energy. I don't think I'd be charming or charismatic enough to win or put in the effort to do a whole campaign because they are such a grueling process. And also being a YouTuber. Being on YouTube for 13 years. You think I could run for office? There's simply too much ammo, too much of me online that could be used against me in a political campaign. I don't know how politicians like now and in the future are gonna survive because like with the internet, everyone's whole life is online. Unless you have parents who are really strict and like keep your posting to a minimum, or like if you're not allowed to have access to the internet. Like, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. So anyway, yeah, I don't think I will ever run for office, but I do hope that I can do some sort of work to at least support certain campaigns. Perhaps I would be some part of a campaign team, but I don't know exactly what my role would be or what would be fitting. And last question, which nobody asked, but I wanted to add, is thoughts on the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, and Biden-Harris tickets. In short, I think the DNC, I think I only watched like one or two nights, which were both painful to get through. Just, of course, so many platitudes. The whole first night, hours and hours of platitudes. Like, we're gonna return to normalcy. We're gonna return to the Obama era. We're gonna restore the soul of the nation. Trump bad. Okay. There were literally no mentions of any policies until Bernie did his speech. And then he goes boom, 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 boom. Biden's gonna do this, help you with your healthcare, jobs, Corona. Like, oh, okay, finally someone mentions like what Biden is actually gonna do to help people other than just being Biden and not being Trump. Cool. Anyway, yeah, I've very much been frustrated with the classic and predictable Democratic messaging of just like, we're gonna give people like hope, but not hope for anything specific, just like general hope and like nostalgia and like normalcy. That's what people want. And also, oh God, they've really been hammering on the like female empowerment, women, Kamala's a woman stuff. But again, it's like, how are you going to help women other than just having a female VP? Because that doesn't actually do anything to help people. And am I happy about Biden-Harris? No, of course not. Definitely not the ideal team. I very much hope that Trump loses. I would love nothing more than to see Trump lose this election. But I will say that I really hope Biden and Harris's teams and campaign step it up to figure out how to actually win more votes, because at this point they're not offering people much that is substantial, and I hope that they change their messaging because I don't want to see a repeat of 2016. But who knows, it's 2020 and anything could happen because we're living in a simulation and life is a little terrifying. So those are my thoughts so far. that's my video. I hope you guys enjoyed part 2 of this Q&A. Very, very overdue. And stay tuned for my next second channel upload, which will probably be in like 4 months from now. Thanks for watching. Okay, thanks. Bye.